Don't just live for tomorrow, or just live in yesterday. Just be glad for all you have that's in today. And though you've come through many obstacles.
Hey everyone, Connie here, and welcome to my blind reaction to episode 4 of Amphibia. So, last week's episode was not too bad comparatively. Compared to what I was thinking before with this series. But I feel like it's still got a long way to go to really invest me as much as shows like Owl House or Infinity Train or any of these newer shows that are kind of taking things by storm in a way. I just feel like there's a lot of room to still improve, and honestly, there's some things that I'm probably not going to completely get over. Like, I just find a lot of the concept to be kind of uninteresting. And I'm not really a fan of the entire, well, kind of part of the concept. The amphibian, the frog characters and everything are just kind of like, I don't see the appeal in it, in their designs or anything. They're not interesting designs to me. They just don't do it for me, like the characters and stuff, like, again, the Owl House and Infinity Train do. It just feels off. Not really off, but weird to me. I'm just not a fan, personally. So it's like, that I'm probably not going to fully get over. I'll probably learn to live with it, but that's about it. But as long as the actual episodes and their content gets better, that's what I'm going to try to focus on, and what I'm going to try to hope is just the big selling point for this. Because I always tend to look at story and characters above other stuff when I watch anything or play games or whatever. So I want to try to use that as my kind of measuring stick for this series, rather than, the general aesthetic. Because, again, in my view, the aesthetic could use some work, and just with the concept of this show, it's not appealing to me as it is. It's not like, and I'm not saying the art or animation is bad or anything. It's just, it's the aesthetic of the show, the style of it in itself. That's more of a conceptual thing than an actual execution thing. But yeah, I'm just hoping, as long as the stories are good, as long as the characters are good, as long as there's not bad morals like there was in episode 2, or not really bad morals, bad lessons, bad themes, that kind of thing, just in general. As long as there's not any of that, or at least not a lot of it, I should be okay. Because, yeah, right now it reads to me as like an okay series. Nothing special, nothing really exciting. I don't get the hype behind it. I don't. And the thing is, I know of some things that happen in the future, because, again, with having taken so much time off of this because of dropping it in the first place, I've heard things just on social media. So I know some big plot points going forward, and it still doesn't really change my mind all that much. Maybe it's just because it's out of context, but I don't know. It's just, I'm not as invested right now. And hopefully that changes. Hopefully I'm proven wrong, and it changes, and I get super invested in this show. That's always what I would hope. But I can't promise anything to you guys. and I'm just hoping right now that I can stick with it at this point. Um, Now there's about 20 episodes in this season. Um, I'm going to try to get through it all without needing a break. Especially since I'm going to be taking a break after season one, no matter what. And this is all presuming I don't drop it again for whatever reason, but hopefully I don't. I'm going to try not to. Um, I'm going to give Amphibia a fair shot here, unlike last time. So I'm going to try to get through all 20 episodes without taking a break. And we'll just take a break after season one. But if I do need a break for whatever reason, it might be around, I don't know, like episode 12 or so. After episode 12. I don't know. It's just, I'll see how I'm feeling at that point, basically. If I feel like I need a break or not. And if I do take a break, we will be coming back to it. It's just, as I've been doing on the channel lately, taking a break to keep myself from getting burnt out on shows because of just reacting to them for too long. Because again, as I've stated in the past, there's only one show on this channel that's ever been able to really keep me from getting complete. Well, actually, One Piece is the show that I can watch as much of as it goes on. I never get burnt out on One Piece. But there has been other shows I've watched on this channel, to be fair, that I don't tend to get burnt out on. One of which has been Carol and Tuesday, obviously, because that's one of my favorite shows of all time. Only after One Piece, in fact. It's my second favorite. I never got burnt out on that. Every episode was amazing. But then there's been other shows as well, like JoJo and stuff. It just kind of depends on the show, but a lot of times, especially with older shows, I tend to get burnt out a little easier. If it's currently airing, I tend to be okay. I don't know why that is. It's probably something with my mind. It's a mindset thing, but with currently airing stuff, I tend to be okay. But with stuff that's older and everything, even just by a few years and all, for some reason, I can feel burnt out on the show a little easier. And it also just depends on the show, again. But yeah, so hopefully we won't need to take a break. Hopefully we'll just get through it without any issue. But we'll see. We will definitely have to see. That being said, we're just going to get into this and hope for the best. So, yeah, let's do so. When the screen fades to black, pause the redirect and go to the description below. Follow the link to the reaction, and after you watch it, come back here to the redirect and resume play. Because after it fades to black and then it fades back in, everything from that point forward will be my afterthoughts and will contain spoilers to the episode. So, with that being said, thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you at the reaction. And we are back, and we'll begin with spoilers in 3, 2, 1, now. So, luckily, this show is keeping in... How do I word this? It's continuing to not offend me. After episode 2, like, that was the only one that actually had something that really bothered me like that. And luckily it's not going back to doing that kind of thing, but it's kind of stuck itself right into the realm of really generic story points and plots. Like, everything from this episode was as generic as it comes, as predictable as it comes, and kind of just not... It didn't do enough to make itself feel anything special. Like, even with the coat of paint over it, you could say, of it being, you know, Amphibia and having all of these amphibious characters and the caterpillar instead of the cat and everything. It's like everything about this was still super generic, and it's really disappointing because Owl House has proven, even while it does have some weaker episodes, it has proven that it can really ride that creativity and uniqueness. And this series just isn't doing the same. At least not yet. Maybe it will in the future, but right now it's just it just feels like it's taking the most generic plot ideas possible and just putting the amphibian coat of paint over it. Um, so let's talk about 4A. 4A, Anne and Sprig, while messing around near the woods, find a caterpillar that happens to look like Anne's pet cat from home. They decide to sneak it into the house because Hop Pop doesn't want any more pets in the house. And it ends up showing signs of being dangerous. They don't believe it, but it ends up being like a killer pitter or something. I don't know how to say it. Killer pillar? Something like that? I don't know. Something like that. It's this amphibivore creature that is extremely dangerous. I don't know what's going on out there. That is extremely dangerous after it cocoons itself and turns itself into, I'd say, a moth more than a butterfly. So the thing with this part of the episode is that you've seen time and time again in all kinds of shows. The entire thing about bringing a pet home, the parental figure doesn't want it, so they have to sneak it in and have to hide it and try to pretend it's not there while the parental figure is growing suspicious. And then it ends up being too much responsibility, or in some cases where they try to be a little more creative with it, it's dangerous. This has been done to death. And really, like, yes, there's a certain level of danger and everything in this that's maybe a step beyond what other shows have done, but it doesn't do enough to make it really feel like anything special. It's kind of boring, to be honest, because you know every beat of what's going to happen from the very beginning, pretty much. The instant you see that, like, there's this caterpillar that looks like Anne's pet cat, it's like you know exactly what's going to happen. You know what's going to happen, how it's going to happen. It's so predictable. And I've said before on the channel, predictability isn't always a bad thing if the story and everything is still well executed. The problem is here, again, it's generic. It's as meh as it gets. It doesn't do anything unique to the concept. And I just feel like it's a kind of, not really a waste of time exactly, but it's just not that investing. And then we have 4B, and it's very much the same thoughts on this. Because it's, again, so predictable. It was so fucking obvious right away that it was Hop Pop. Like, they tried to play this angle, like, oh, who could it be? No, it was so blatantly Hop Pop from the beginning. If you genuinely even considered it being at either of the other two, or even Anne, I'm sorry, but it's like, I don't know how you even could. Like, it's not even hidden. Like, maybe it's because I've watched so many other things and I've seen this kind of thing done to death, but the entire thing about, like, the curmudgeon, like, old parental figure and stuff saying they're not into it and then actually secretly being really into it and everything, it's done to death. the entire thing about like, oh, someone mysteriously did this in the middle of the night, and in this case drained the battery, but in other cases like various other things like that. Yeah, it's been done to death, and it's always the same kind of character who does it. And so it's like it's not only not a surprise that it was Hot Pot, but it literally could not have been anyone else. If they tried to make it anyone else, it wouldn't have made sense. It would not have worked. From a storytelling standpoint, because everything had been set up for it to be Hot Pop. So it's just, I cannot understand. I don't understand the appeal of this show right now. As I had said before, it's like, it's so generic that I don't understand why people were so invested in this. Like, at least episode 3 gave us some more interesting things happening. This episode was just like as blatantly bland as possible. It was two extremely overdone generic plot points that took no risks and no creative turns, and just went with the bare bones basics. Like, again, even when the Owl House or other shows like this have done things like have done generic plot points and stuff, they've made it more interesting. Steven Universe, Star Versus, other shows have done this kind of thing too. They've taken a generic plot point and made it more interesting by integrating the uniqueness of the world into it and making it feel natural. Here, again, it just feels like a coat of paint. Like, you know that old web game Neopets that I think still exists in some form or another? You could literally take a paintbrush item and use it on one of your Neopets, and it literally just change their color. Nothing else about your Neopet would change. It would literally just change their color. That's basically what this is here. Nothing about the actual plot points changed. Nothing about them are different enough to warrant any kind of creativity or uniqueness to them. It's literally just a coat of paint over it. Like, it's just like, oh, this is the exact same thing, but they're frogs. And it's like, whoop-de-doo. It doesn't feel naturally integrated into the world or anything. It doesn't feel like it doesn't feel like anything you would see otherwise. And that's the biggest thing that I'm taking away from this series, is that they're not taking advantage of the concept of Anne being in this amphibious world. They're not taking enough advantage of it. They're just using these generic plots to no real creative end. And it's boring. And again, as I stated in the pre-thoughts, I know about some major plot points down the line. I know some of the places this goes. Not everything, and definitely not in context. But I've seen stuff on social media just because it was impossible not to after I had dropped this the first time. So I know some of the places it goes, and it still just didn't feel, again, maybe because it's out of context, but it didn't feel like anything special to me. It didn't make me want to pick up this series again, basically. Again, the reason I picked up this series again was because it was a donation reward. I would not have done so otherwise. But like I said, I'm going to give this a fair chance. It could improve, and I hope it does. I very much hope that this improves. I very much hope that they start getting more creative and more and I hope they take advantage of their concept. Because right now it's not doing so. It's very bland and uninteresting. The characters aren't even interesting. And it's just like, I just want more. I want them to actually do something that makes me want to watch more, that makes me invested in this series. So I'm hoping that they do improve on that. I really am. But right now, I don't see the hype. I don't understand the appeal behind this or why it's so popular right now. But tell me in the comments below what you thought of this episode of Amphibia. And as always, don't tell me any spoilers in the comments, because even though I do know some things coming up, it's like just for the sake of safety and everything, don't mention anything. Because again, I don't know the context behind the spoilers that I know. So I very much have to see what happens to hopefully get those few things like effectively working for me, I guess you could say. So no spoilers, but yeah, it's just I'm not impressed by this series right now. Tell me your thoughts down below, and thank you so much for tuning in. For now, I'm Connie, and I'm signing off. See y'all next time.